Welcome back, everybody, to the 2218 Attitude for Gratitudes live podcast. Tonight is a show of shows. We've got Rick and Jesse back to tackle the fourth step tonight, which is huge. And we're all good, right? It's time to take it to the streets here. The vision statement of the 2218 Alano Society of Minneapolis is to be the premier Alano clubhouse, serving the greater Twin Cities that offers support and strength to those who suffer from addiction and for their families. And leading right into letting everyone know that if you're financially able to donate to the club, follow the link and financially donate. If you want to come volunteer some time, please come on down, volunteer your time. Come make this club yours. Become a member. Their membership, they made adjustments. It's very easy to get involved here. You can come pick up, clean up. If you got community service hours you need handled, they can sign those off. If you just want to come help plant some flowers in the garden, we're getting to that time of the season where we're doing that as well. But 2218 is they're monumental in recovery. They just celebrated an 80th birthday, which went off without a hitch. It was a huge, huge bash on Sunday. A lot of people showed up, and that's just what this club does. We've got another event coming up, the 2218 Ride for Recovery. It's the 4th annual Ride for Recovery, June 25th. Tons and tons of things going on that day. It's a big, long motorcycle ride, and then there's Zoo Factor is going to be playing here. Anyone can show up. It's free to show up. There's food, there's fun, there's games, music, there's speakers. We're having an award ceremony. We're doing raffles. We're doing silent auctions. It's going to be a day of days like it is every year.
A day of days.
Definitely come be part of that. I will break it down probably after the 10 o'clock hour or right before we close. I'll bring it back up. But yes, this club saves lives. Come be part of this club. Make it your club. Elena, how you doing? Want to talk to us about anything?
I'm doing really good. I'm just going to share about Gopher State today. So
Perfect.
Gopher State is coming up. That is going to be Memorial Day weekend. That is going to be May 27th, 28th, and 29th. And that is down at the Bloomington, what is it, the Hilltop? What is that?
The Doubletree.
The Doubletree down in Bloomington.
Right?
I can never remember that hotel. So that is down at the Doubletree in Bloomington.
Right off
It's
Highway 100 there.
right off Highway 100 past 494. It is an absolute amazing experience. There are going to be thousands and thousands of people in recovery. You're going to be able to meet new people, see old people, see people you haven't seen in a while. You're going to be able to go to meetings. They have, last week Tim talked about the countdown. They have a countdown there where you can see how long people have been in recovery. And people aren't worried about showing you if they've been sober or clean for less than 24 hours. It's an amazing experience. They have rooms available down there. If you want to get a room, you go to the Gopher State Roundup website, and they can give you rooms at a discount. So they do still have some rooms available. I don't know how long that's going to last. There are a lot of people that get rooms down there. It is kid-friendly. They have a pool. They have all kinds of stuff. And then there's going to be every Alano in the area and Minnesota. So you're going to be able to meet new people. You're going to be able to see different Alanos, get schedules for meetings, everything. So we hope to see everybody down there, and we are going to actually try to do our show down there too.
Yes.
For that night. So that Friday night.
Because what's it been? 2 years since they've really had an official one?
It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
It's
last
been
year
too
was-
long.
Yep, too long. And this is the Super Bowl of recovery for Minnesota.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. We're going to do what we can to see if we can set up the podcast there. That was the idea, the very first. There was no being able to plan because of the epidemic or pandemic or the COVID shit, whatever. So we're going to take it as it comes in.
We have a
by
few
ear.
different options to be able to do the show down there, so we'll see what we can do.
I think it'll be awesome. We'll catch people left and right and just
Yep.
have, just like our, the night we had the dance down here, the Pride dance, when people were popping in and out, it'll be something like that, I think.
Yes, and if you're looking for ways to volunteer, there are people that are on the committee down there that are still looking for help for security. There's Alanos that need help for volunteers. There's all kinds of stuff. So if you need or you want to do any kind of service work, reach out to me and we can get you set up with somebody that's in that committee.
Yes. That's awesome. So, you know what I was also thinking is that I got to talk over my loud phone I didn't silence. Um, Something else that's going on here at 2218 is that we are doing we do this annual cleanup type of a situation where we get all the grounds ready, and we usually do it right before Ride for Recovery. So Saturday, April 30th, 2218 would like to see if we can get some volunteers out here to just help clean up the grounds, get it prepared for the Ride for Recovery. Like I said, we flowers and plants and parking lot cleanup, just getting involved in it. It's fulfilling. It helps with my recovery. Let it help for yours.
Did you mention the wristbands for Ride for Recovery?
Yes.
Because you do have to get those early if you want a discount. They're $20 early. Otherwise, the day of the event, they're $25. And just remember that all these proceeds are for the fundraiser.
And I believe it's Dan Jones. I will confirm during the show. But reach out to me directly if you want. I will, before shows end, I will know who we get in touch with for those wristbands. So, like she said, there is advanced sales, which make it cheaper. Other than that, briefly, how's your week gone?
My week's been great. It was my first full week at my new job.
How'd that go?
It's going awesome. Working in recovery is a gift. That's all I can say. It is
awesome.
a gift. But I won't, I mean, I don't regret switching jobs. I don't regret making any changes that I've been making lately.
Awesome. No, that's cool.
How was your week?
My week's been good. First full week at this elevated position in this company I'm at, and it's a great experience. It's financially rewarding, very financially rewarding, but also I'm learning managerial aspects of work versus just, you know, a 3-man crew or 4-man crew. I've got a lot more than that. So it's good growth, though.
I
It
got
really
a book
is.
for you to read.
I'm going to be posting a few different links on here. We always, you know, the suicide hotline. Just know you're never alone. If you're struggling, please reach out. We all put our phone numbers on here. You don't have to be alone. You're worthy. You're worth it. Just don't stew in your own garbage. Reach out to someone. You don't have to be alone on this. So get involved. This show is your show. If you have ideas for it, if there's some topic you'd like us to talk about, if there's questions you have for our guests tonight, if you don't want it to be on this board, reach out to one of us personally. Just direct message us, and we'll get the questions asked. We're going to tackle the 4th step tonight. I wanted it to be a couple of shows, but we're doing one show, one step, one show type deal. So without blabbing on too long, want to hop right into it and get to chopping?
Yeah, let's chop it up.
Chop it up, boys. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. For the audience members that are newer, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Rick, alcoholic.
Hey, Rick.
Eric.
I'm Jesse, alcoholic.
Hi,
Hey,
Jesse.
Yeah, that's that mic where we want to be right on top of it.
We we do a more involved workshop here on Wednesdays at 6:30. We're going to cover this kind of quickly, and normally we'd read through chapter 5, but we're not going to have time to do that.
Chapter 5 starts on what, page 59 in the big book, I believe?
58.
58.
But I would like to just share something that we always do at the beginning, at least have for a long time. And it comes in the foreword to the first edition, where it says, it's on XIII. It says, this is the foreword as it appeared in the first printing of the first edition in 1939. So this is what they wanted to tell us. It says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. We have recovered. And that's something.
It's a strong word.
Yeah. To show other alcoholics, and this is italicized, so it must be important, to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So they wrote this book and published it in 1939, 38, putting it together. AA's dated 1935, when Dr. Bob took his last drink. So between 1935 and 1938, when they were putting this together, they had 3 to 4 years of experience as they were practicing principles that came primarily, not exclusively, out of the Oxford Group teachings, which was a Christian movement that was started probably around 1930 or 31, something like that.
The Oxford group was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It came out of England. And it was a Christian movement that felt they were teaching first century Christianity. Well, the drunks couldn't handle the language. Turn your will and life over to Jesus Christ, your personal Savior. They'd rather die than do that, and some of them were. So they broke from the Oxford groups eventually and took the ideas and put it in a form that was acceptable, that was more inclusive instead of exclusive, so we could bring anybody in. So this whole thing is written from their collective experiences, not their collective theories.
That's
This
a
is-
big deal.
That is
Yeah.
a big, big deal.
There, yeah.
Yeah. And the way that was shown to me years ago, I was watching a video of a guy who invented a helicopter. His name was Arthur Young, and he was an inventor. He's an interesting guy. He's worth looking up on YouTube. But he'd been an inventor all his life. He said they had theories when they invented this particular form of helicopter. It should work a certain way. If we do A, B, and C, D should follow by logic. So it should work, it should fly. Then he said they would build a model. Whenever they'd invent something, apparently they'd go through this process. Their theories are based in logic. So then they build a model and fly it and see if it worked. He said sometimes the model didn't obey their theories. In other words, it didn't work the way, by logic, it should.
Like written on paper type.
Yeah,
1
right.
plus 1 is 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't work always the way they thought. Sometimes it wouldn't. But they didn't say that their theories were right and the experience was wrong. They adapted their theories to the experience. The experience is what's true. Any reasonable mind would do that. It's not what I was doing.
It's not what I was doing.
When I came into AA, I was trying to force solutions and make the world adapt to my theories. And it wasn't working. Now, when I got sober, then I thought, I just got to work it harder. So I came into sobriety and I poured more energy into trying to make things work that weren't working. Why in the world would a guy do that? Well, my life got worse. Never occurred to me to not do it. Why? It was logical. Made sense. It should work.
It's having your own experience. But
But it wasn't working. But it should work, but it's not. So logic was keeping me hanging on to things that weren't working because they were logical and made sense. They should, but they weren't. And then conversely, and this is not something that I really did, but I've seen it a lot. Guys will come into the fellowship and not try things that will work that aren't logical.
not try things that will work that are logical.
Right.
Not logical.
That are not logical.
Yeah. In other words, what we'll read and talk about here in the fourth step, much of the ideas in chapter 5, or certainly some, are not necessarily logical, but they work. They may not make sense at first look, but if you try it, you'll see that it works. That's the key to this, and that's what they gave us. They handed down a process that they worked out and saw. They hung on and put into the book what did work and dropped off what wasn't. So that's what we got.
And it's in there precisely.
Yeah.
These 100
Precisely.
people that went through this and had experiences with what worked.
Yeah, to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So we're going to look at precisely how they've recovered, but we don't have time to go over it like we do on Wednesdays here. So we're going to just kind of cover a few points here. Maybe we could just start a little bit in the first part of chapter 5. Just read that first paragraph. At
Yeah,
least that's a key idea.
Let's do that. So chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves.
So there's the problem, okay? Us who won't recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. And they're usually men and women who don't seem to be able to be honest with themselves.
You know, when it snows out and it's a Saturday, and I don't have to go to work necessarily, and I look out the door, and the sidewalk needs shoveling and the steps need shoveling. So, can I or will I? There's a lot of things that reflect around that. Can I do it or will I do it?
The two things my sponsor had me highlight in this paragraph, the first word, rarely, and then rigorously honest.
Yeah.
Rigorous honesty.
Somebody asked Chuck C., or Chuck C. asked Bill, apparently, why he wrote rarely instead of never. And from what Chuck reported, I can't prove this. All I can do is report what I heard and read Chuck saying. He said, Bill told him there's always some drunk who'll prove you wrong if you say never. I'll do everything you did. I'll thoroughly follow your path and fail just to prove you guys are full of crap because you said never. So they said rarely so we could even bring that lunatic in, apparently. So the story goes.
Well, and
know if
I've
that's
heard
accurate.
monumental. Oh, I've heard plenty of people say, "Oh, I worked these steps to prove you wrong," and they got it. You know,
Yeah.
situations like that. We've had them on the show.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that mind exists,
Oh,
but
it
I got to
does.
tell you, we had a guy in our group. He was about 7 years sober. We were out at the retreat putting on a meeting. I didn't know this about him. He'd been coming to our group for a long time. He says, I heard these guys talking about inventory. He said, I knew they were full of crap. He said, I had a case built against my mother and my brother, and it was airtight. I knew that I was right. But he got so sick of listening to us. He's telling this to the group out there. I didn't know it
At
until
the
he said
retreat?
it. At the retreat. He says, and he's telling this, and I'm sitting there looking at this because I knew him pretty well. He says, so I decided to write it just to show these guys they were full of crap. So he had every intention of it not working. He wrote it, and it worked. It worked when he didn't want it to work.
Yeah, isn't that kind of what you share? Is I did things I didn't believe and got results that
I took actions I didn't believe in, and I got results
No.
I couldn't deny.
yeah.
That's how I came to believe.
So this guy came in. That's a good story.
Yeah.
I'll show you guys. It's not working, and
Yeah.
he thoroughly did it.
Yeah.
And oh shit, it worked.
Yeah.
That's how precise it is.
Cut and dry.
So we're going to be honest with ourselves. Do you want to say something? We're going to be honest with ourselves. Now, I heard that as honest with everybody else. This is such a key point.
Ourselves.
We're talking about being honest with them ourselves. And I heard that as I got to be rigorously honest with everybody else. I got to stop lying. I got to stop stealing. I'll be working a program. I believe that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what then? Self-deception.
Self-deception.
Yeah, I don't have self-deception, right?
Shit, I lived in that.
How do you know you don't have self-deception? Isn't by definition the guy who has it doesn't know it?
It's oxymoron in a way. How do you You can't. Or how do you say I don't have self-deception?
Well, I did. I thought I said it. I remember hearing somebody talk like this. I couldn't believe it. But it occurred to me that if you have self-deception, you don't know you have self-deception until you get past it and look back. You ever been wrong when you were sure you were right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I regurgitate your story all the time about that with the money on the dresser. I think that was you. Wasn't
Well,
that you who?
Yeah.
Our heads. We
Yeah.
got our own facts, our proof. I'm sure. I know.
I'm right.
And then
Then you get some new information, you find out you're wrong.
Baltimore really did come back. You owe me an apology. Whatever
So-
the case, yeah.
So if you've been wrong before, if I've been wrong before when I was sure I was right, and I have, then how many things could I be wrong about right now and I haven't found out yet? It just hasn't been revealed to me that I'm wrong. I'm still living under the illusion, maybe happily, maybe unhappily, that I'm right.
Is that where your spiritually fit comes into play to be willing to if you're certain, if it's a situation, let's say work, you know you're right. The material you ordered, you know, was this amount. Then you get the copy of your email and it was wrong. Something like that. Is that it's a personal to get that growth or something?
Well, I think it's even worse than that. Generally, it's about some resentment that I've got towards someone. I want to look at the guy as guilty. It's like, I wasn't going to share this, but I'll just do it quickly. I'm drinking in my living room with a guy I just met that morning through a friend. We got drunk that night. Next morning, I wake up, I passed out, like typical, I blacked out. He's gone, my money's gone. I was sure he ripped me off. So I was pissed. So I called up people who introduced me to him, and nobody seemed to know him. But I was quick to slander this guy to everybody that I had made probably 3 phone calls on that one. And then nobody knew him.
Just crucifying them.
I was going to kill him. If I could have got a hold of him, I would have done something bad, you know. Well, I was just rageful. A couple of months go by, I find my money. I hid it in a drawer when I was drunk, forgot that I put it there. And right away, when it comes up missing, what's the first thing I do? It's got to be somebody else. Can't be me. It's somebody else did it, clearly. And now I'm wrong. Now, certainly I didn't call anybody up and tell them I was wrong. It's embarrassing when this stuff happens. So I leave that perception out there for this guy to deal with. Who knows where that gossip went? But I slandered him as good as I could, you know. Now I'm wrong. And I have no integrity. I don't deal with stuff. So I just pretend like nothing happened. Of course, it's a couple months have gone by. You know, you could see me do something, I deny it. You think I'm going to admit it after a couple months?
Absolutely
Of course not, you know. So I'm guilty. I don't like how I feel. I'll tell you, I learned something pretty early on with booze, that you can get over really negative thoughts in your mind when you've done that thing that you just can't stand that you did. You know, you hate yourself for it and you can't change it, or at least you think you can't. You don't want to admit it. So you just drink it away. You drink those thoughts away. But does it ever really go anywhere? You see, this stuff comes floating back up when you sober up.
Once the fog clears.
Yeah. And you start remembering all the crappy things you did and the crappy things others did. And it's a nightmare. And you got a head full of this stuff. And if you don't deal with it through an inventory, ultimately what's going to happen, and you see it all the time, is sobriety starts to look like a problem because you're in pain in sobriety.
Right.
And a drink looks like a solution, and it's not even conscious. You just pick it up. You don't even think twice about it.
Go to.
Because you know that you can get out of the pain.
You get
And
that
conflict.
temporary resolution with the drink instantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Temporary. Yeah.
yeah. And then you compound the problem because you create some more problems because of what
More
you
way-
just did. So
Yep.
it really is a no-win thing when you're in that mode. But the importance of honesty here, guys, is really significant, because what are we going to look at in an inventory? Well, the first part, and we're going to try and cruise through this as best we can, but the first part is about looking at resentments. What's a resentment? A resentment is a story. It's a story that justifies my anger. You can't be angry without a story, or you'd be angry for no reason.
The story my head tells me justifies my resentment
That's right.
or my feelings.
Well, sure. Otherwise, you'd be angry for no reason. You have to have a story. I used to try and convince guys when I first got sober that their anger wasn't justified. Well, all anger is justified. That's absurd. I would never do that today. All I was doing was irritating everybody when I did that. And I thought I was some kind of a junior psychiatrist. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to tell them how to look at it. And, it was just crazy, because I had a big experience with inventory and it altered me. So I'm out there trying to fix people.
Resentment, displeasure caused by a wrong done to oneself or friends, a deep sense of wrong, anger.
Yeah. And in the dictionary, I looked it up, and the first couple words were, again, to feel.
Yeah.
So it's, again, you rehearse it in your mind over and over, but it's not intellectual. It's at a feeling level. You feel the pain over and over and over, and you actually hurt yourself with the way you're thinking about it. See? But I can't stop because I'm right. So we're going to examine these stories. We're going to look at these stories and see if they're accurate. I don't like to use the word true, because some parts of it might be accurate and true, and maybe other parts are not. So it doesn't mean that something didn't happen. But maybe I can be shown something through a process of writing that could help me see it from an entirely different angle. That's what we're going to shoot for here.
These things, resentments, and often I think it's more if you think of yourself as a good person. I don't want to have resentment, so I don't think I even want to look. But the word resentment can really have lots of other words that might be, I'm a little miffed. What's under the little miffed might be rage. But I don't want to, because I want to be a good person. A little disturbed by what they did. Or I've already forgiven them, but, oh really? There wouldn't be a but. So there's a lot of things, and for some reason once, I think you can avoid it. But in this process of inventory, it's okay to be pissed. It's really, okay, just write the story down. The story that Rick's talking about, these stories that we have in our minds about what's wrong with other people. This is a free chance to write a complaint form in the beginning of this process. Even if it's just, I'm a little miffed. I don't really like blank about that person, or whatever it is. So the resentment is an open door to be honest with myself.
I like that. It's an open complaint form in life.
So this is different than trying to be good or trying not to be mad. This is a free chance to actually write down those things that are a bit disturbing. So,
Yeah, Jesse and I are very different in a couple ways. One way, and it's helpful, I think, for the workshop,
It is.
because Jesse he looked at himself as being good. See, I never did that. I never thought of and I mean this, from the time I was very young, very young, 5, 6, 7 years old, I was stealing at a very early age. I knew I was self-serving. I didn't think of myself when I did something nice for you. I didn't think of myself as I was a good guy for doing it, because I knew that I wanted something. There was always a manipulation.
Right.
There was always some hook. Now, I'm not particularly proud of this, because even though I may have been one step in this sense ahead of Jesse, because he has to back that out, because he's a good guy to see his self-serving nature. But the point that I'm trying to make is, at least he had enough decency to try and cover it.
You didn't.
I didn't.
You didn't care.
I didn't care. That's the sad reality of that. I literally didn't care.
And this
I knew
is at
I
a
was
very
doing it,
early age. You're
and
very young.
and I
You
didn't
knew.
care. And that's unfortunate because that's a pretty sick guy.
We kind of touched on it last month when you guys were here. It's like that learned behavior. You know, you saw the pastor, so you had this at a young age. At
Yeah.
5 years old, knowing you're self-serving, is that in your own makeup, or is it just from dad passed down, or do we even pick it apart
there
now?
was no
Or
family really when I grew up. I was raising myself on the streets. Really, I was making my own choices based on you
Self?
steal something, you have something you didn't have before.
Right.
You can't afford to buy it because you don't have the money, so you steal it. That's all. So it was working
right?
in that sense.
What were you gonna say? I think I cut you off.
You didn't cut me off. It's just that this notion, if I think I have a good intention, if I think I have perhaps an idea of I'm doing a good deed or I'm being helpful, all of those can be a disguise for for lots of types of self-will run riot.
Well,
So-
self-seeking.
Well, this is what we talked about last month.
Sure, we touch on this. It's a big deal to take a look in this direction because under these things are hidden the real motives. Maybe there's layers of motives. And if I look down, and I got to be quiet with myself, look down under the good intention. No, I want something out of this deal.
At the end of the day, I'm doing this for a reason.
Yeah, I'm trying to get something to go my way. I'm trying to get something for myself, whatever that might be.
Could the reason be to be a better person?
Well, I would
I mean,
say
you see
this is great that you bring that up because this notion of moving in that direction and not quite frankly, simply being honest that I'm trying to get something to go my way, it can even be disguised in trying to be a better person. There's no limit to the disguises.
And only self will know that answer.
That's why this inventory is so vital. But under those disguises, it's more likely that I will keep thinking I'm right and you're wrong. And the inventory is going to help us in looking where we're wrong about a story. So the grip gets tighter if you think you have good motives.
Yeah, it sure does.
I went to 5 different meetings to find that IP, and I finally got it over at Tradition 5.
Which IP is that?
That's the employer.
Bird's eye view.
Yeah,
Bird's
that-
eye view of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, I just got something written on this pamphlet. It's not in the pamphlet. It's something that I picked up from a guy, a Jesuit priest. He said, and he didn't say it. It came from somewhere else. He said, you can be very sincere about what you believe. He says, sincerity is not enough. What we need is honesty. Well, this is a guru saying this, okay? The student says, well, what's the difference? He says, honesty is a never-ending openness to the facts. Sincerity is believing one's own propaganda.
Oh.
You can buy a ticket to your own show, see?
Just pile on a few more good intentions and good motives on your show.
See, he had a good show. I didn't give a damn. That's not a particularly good position to be in, but that's what it was.
The good show didn't work either.
But
No.
then, I mean, coming to putting it now into play today, like running your workshop. Thanks, Jeff. That brings a different, you got a different dynamic where, like you said, I think it adds more from your different backgrounds.
Well,
I know
do
I'm
too.
kind of going off the side, not really even much about the fourth step here, but to have different perspectives of your upbringing, you're selfish, you're a good guy, or how you differentiated.
But the good guy's selfish too.
Well, always,
Yeah.
aren't we
They
all?
both are selfish. Okay.
They're wearing different disguises.
Just different hats.
One's covering it up, the other don't give a damn. Now, why would I not give a damn? Now this kind of came to me not too awfully long ago. It's been maybe percolating for a while. But I was an atheist. And when you're an atheist, you really, in my case anyway, I can only speak for myself here. In my case, I had no sense of others, of being in any way connected to them or part of them or their interests were the same as mine. I was completely separate from everything and everyone. And when you're like that, in this case, and I really attribute a great deal of this to the atheist ideas that I had as a kid. I didn't give a damn. I couldn't connect with other people at an emotional or feel their pain or, you know what I mean? I didn't care. I was separate. The more you grow spiritually and start to heal in that sense, where you feel a sense of others, that's one of the first things that happen is you start to see another person's interests as your own.
Becoming spiritually fit.
Well, it's a beginning where you see that to help another in AA actually helps you. You see another person's interest as your own. When I was an atheist, I didn't see that. I didn't care.
You didn't care.
Yeah, I was completely isolated from them. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. I don't know that every atheist is that way, but I don't know how you could not be, because you literally are separate then from everything. I'm not a part of you. I'm not a part of any God. You know.
When I had a question come in, and I didn't know where to even throw this in, but when you have a resentment, just, some people just let it go. If you're able to let it go, or do you make the amends? If you're able to let it go and not let it affect you anymore, is that sufficient? Or regardless of, if you have resentment, you need to make amends and run, take inventory, run it through the steps, or is that a person to person?
It's a great question, and it kind of sounds a bit like what I said a bit earlier. If I think I'm good, I'm going to just try to make that thing disappear. But does it really disappear? And so the process, this precise process, it's worthy of writing down and taking through the precise process, even if they seem small.
So what do you, go ahead, Tim.
So let's not jump to amends. Let's dive into the process of inventory, the way it's laid out in the book. And I really need to say, this is not how I first heard it in AA. This is how I first heard it when I sat in the workshop and I watched and listened and go through, just like what we're doing now, precisely how the book lays out inventory can be very different than what a person can hear in AA.
Well, and I think one of the things that happens with what you were talking about, Tim, is that you'll pardon people. I'll pardon you for being a jerk. What does that say? I'm right.
And I'm trying to be noble and maybe religious and maybe good, and I'm going to pardon you from some kind of higher ground.
That's why it keeps coming back.
Uh-oh.
That's going down another layer of figuring. You're right.
Here, I'll say,
Yes.
I'll tell you how a good example of this. I'm watching a video of a guy who went to the extreme of learning Aramaic so he could read the teachings of Jesus in the language he spoke. Okay? Now that's quite a feat to learn the damn language, because you want to. Why? Because in translations, words don't always correspond from language to language. Casa in Spanish is not the same as home or house in English. There's little variations on it, see, that are different. Well, this guy, now I can't prove this. I'm just telling you what this guy said, He said when they translated from Aramaic to Greek, the word forgive in Aramaic was to change your mind.
Wow.
In Greek, when it was handed down, he said it came out to pardon. To pardon someone for something and to change your mind are two different things. They're completely different things. But what was handed down was this idea of pardon. We're going to pardon people. You really hurt me, so I'll forgive you for being a jerk, But I'm still damaged because of what you did, see? But I'll pardon you for being a jerk.
Light bulb.
Light bulb is right.
See, so this is a
Yeah.
distinction. And in the big book, what the process in the big book does is it's about a change of mind. It's the first one, which is just, it's astonishing when you see this. It was for me because I'd been reading a lot of this stuff and watching other people's, you know, like this guy talking about the translation. So,
So if I pardon you and I'm trying to be good and I see you're wrong and bad, I will not change my story. But if I work the process of inventory precisely, which we're getting into, I have a chance to have something revealed in my mind that will help me change the story
from where? Revealed in your mind from where?
from a power greater than myself. A
From
revelation.
your higher power. Your
Well, you get thoughts that are not of your own mind. I was an atheist when I wrote it, and I still got thoughts that were not of my order.
I tried to do this for years through religious processes, and I couldn't get it to happen. I'm just saying. And then I tried this simple process by myself with no one else around, with a open-ended piece of paper in the process, and the pencil started to write thoughts through my mind.
They weren't your ideas.
No, they came through my mind.
Sounds like your voice in your head, but it's not your idea. What we're shooting for is a direct revelation from the Spirit. He does know all the facts. I'm distorting things.
Really?
you're at you have yourself a higher power at this point of doing this too.
Self-deception.
Self-distortion. Self-distortion
So,
in the story.
so this is the honesty, okay? You can be very sincere about your BS, okay? You can literally just believe your own propaganda is what it really is. You buy a ticket to your own show.
I'm
That's-
the biggest co-signer of my own shit all the time.
Yeah, of course, of course. But just to say that really doesn't change anything.
No.
But to have an experience of it, when you see it and you can't deny it on paper. You know, I think one of the reasons that people really balk at doing an inventory is first, around the fellowship, it's talked of as, oh, it's such a terrible process. Oh, it was so hard. You hear them talk. We just had that happen in our meeting the other night here.
That's
Oh, just-
that's a great big bunch of misinformation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that people are suspicious of their stories already. Their stories about their resentments. They're already got some suspicion about their crap, but they really don't want to see it on paper. Why? Because then
It's real.
it's
I don't know.
No, that's right. Then it's got a reality that you didn't have before. I
Almost-
think we're already suspicious of our stories.
Yeah. It's almost quit looking there and let's focus right here. People that are we're talking about this big hiccup or this big hurdle. You hear you hear a lot with someone doing steps their first time and it's the scuttlebutt about this dreaded 4-step and this and that. But you're right.
What if people knew that will only make your mind feel better if it's done precisely by the book? Your mind will feel better in a number of short minutes.
You
people
already
need to hear that.
feel bad.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
There's a no-lose situation here.
It's a
It's
no-lose
not going
Yeah,
to
that's what-
increase your guilt. It's going to take the
Take
guilt
it away.
away.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't sound logical. Here's one of those logical
Mm-hmm.
things again here. But yet that's the experience that I had. It didn't make me more guilty. I was already making myself guilty.
Yeah,
It
it's my
took the guilt away.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to get into this, but it's just here. So what is the process? So we're going to write our story down, right?
Yep.
Now,
Story.
Now, I might say to a guy that I'm sponsoring, okay, let's see if you're, I'm not going to tell you your anger's not justified. Of course it's justified. But is your story accurate? And he says, yes, my story's accurate, and I'll tell you all about it. I say, good. That's the first 3 columns on page 65. Okay.
So I have a question for you. A lot of the people that I've seen in the rooms, when they start to do their step 4, their biggest fear of moving on to their step 5 is that they miss something. And they don't want to move forward. But I tell people it's okay to move forward because it's okay if you forget something.
Yeah,
because
can
I
always-
forgot. You can always go back and do that with like your
course.
step 10 or do another step 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it does not have to be perfect.
Right. Or you're doing the 4th step all the time.
Yeah. Don't let that be an excuse not
with
to
the 10th,
get
right.
better.
But you see, the story is the first 3 columns on page 65. This is not the solution. This is the justification for my anger.
This is the chance to write down the complaint form.
This is our complaint from the first 3
These
columns.
forms, by the way, we're talking about, you can download them and print them off on our website, our workshop website, which is aabythebook.org. You can go on there. The sheets are right there.
And they are the
We'll get that on our.
they-
We'll put that
They
on
are
our
the easiest
website.
things to follow because that is exactly how I did my 4th step.
Yeah, yeah. They're very simple and they just work. That's
It's
all.
aabythebook.org.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to print off multiple copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to need, there's a little box right underneath the first column, where they show on 65, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, my employer, and my wife. Those are 4 separate stories of things. You list one of those on each sheet.
Yep.
This
You
was
don't list all 4 on one sheet.
This is a major shift or breakthrough in my life. I was first in AA using a spiral notebook, making little lists that looked a lot like page 65. Looked a lot like it, but it wasn't one story at a time. And I'd get them all kind of mixed together in a way and
Just confusing, then.
get very
Just one sheet
you know,
per.
to know that I'm selfish really isn't precise.
Well, Mr. Brown would be one sheet, Mrs. Jones would be a second sheet, my employer would be a third sheet. You'd need 4 sheets to do what's in here, And then we're going to take and write a 4th column on the back of the sheet. And we'll get into what that is, but this is basically just the story of why my anger is justified. Now, I'm just going to back up a quick second. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. But on the top of page 62, it says selfishness, self-centeredness. That, we think, is the root of our troubles. The reason I wanted to back up here is because we're going to look for the selfishness behind the stories that we're telling ourselves. Our own selfishness, not the other guys, once we've written the first 3 columns. The word selfish in the dictionary, and I think this is an important idea. Here's what Webster's Collegiate Dictionary says selfishness. Now, it's word for word. I haven't changed it. Concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself. Seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, pleasure, or well-being without concern for others. Now that's the qualifier. So I'm looking for an advantage, I want some pleasure, I want some well-being, and in achieving that, I don't consider other people. Why? How could I? I'm concerned excessively or exclusively with me. So I'm not thinking about other people. Now, does that mean I'm bad? Because that's the way I thought, because whenever people used the term selfish in connection with me, it was never a compliment, I can tell you that. Well, the word itself, if you look at it factually, I'm doing for myself and I'm not considering other people. I'm so wrapped up in my addiction, I don't buy the clothes for the kids, I don't pay the rent, I don't buy certain foods. It's not that they're starving, but you know, clearly I'm spending my money somewhere else. I lost our house. I lost my business. I lost everything.
The bondage of self.
Yeah.
Type. Yeah.
Does that mean I didn't care or love my family? Of course not. Get out of the judgment on this word. Look at it factually. Was I doing for myself without concern for others? We're not going to look at this with the judgment. We're going to take that out so that we can look for the selfishness. You're not bad because you're selfish. You're unaware.
Unaware. That's a
Yeah.
better. So.
Yeah.
All right.
You're delusional. You're addicted. You know? You do all kinds of things you wouldn't normally do because you can't control yourself.
Right.
You got the monkey on your back.
Yes.
That's right.
That's an old
That's
term,
right.
but yeah.
So this first 3 columns are just simply the story of why my anger is justified.
We could even have a sheet that said, I know I ordered the right materials on this job site, and they came and they were blank. That could be that could be a story if that was in the guy's life.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Anything. I mean.
Whatever the story that ramps up into I'm right and they're bad, it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't.
It's whatever hinders, whatever's putting weight on your plate.
Sure.
Whatever's putting,
Sure.
and it's valid, like you said.
Sure.
My emotions for whatever it is are valid because of what I'm telling myself for that. Now, just on a side question, you were talking about going through with the sponsee, and they're telling you this story, and
I said, great, let's put it on 3 columns.
all right,
My story is accurate. Good. Write it out in 3
there's
columns.
no question your sponsee. There's no.
Nope.
I got to make sure my story is accurate. It's
Nope.
what my head's
No, we're
telling
not-
me.
We're not trying
Please.
to solve it here. We're just trying to
Exactly.
put it
There
down.
we go. Yeah. So
That's
we're
why
not
I
trying to
bring
solve
up
it.
That's why I bring up this thing that you brought up earlier.
About order.
It
Yeah.
seems so benign. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of these stories.
What's this now could be.
This is the free opportunity to actually write down the words in the stories that are in my mind. And so it's a free chance. Just write the story down.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Yeah.
First 3 columns are your.
It's a story. It's just a story.
story.
It's what you believe is true. Don't edit it. Don't play with it. Just write down what you believe. I don't care if it looks ridiculous when you wrote it down. Just write it down what you believe. You say, well, I shouldn't be angry. It's so trivial. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
I
matter.
am.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't be. But I am. It's emotional. It has to be healed at an emotional level, not an intellectual level. Otherwise, you could just figure this crap out and move on.
Right.
We're not trying to figure anything out at this point.
No.
This is a free chance just to write it down.
Actually, we're not trying to figure anything out at any point. We're
just getting
asking for
it down on-
something to
yeah.
be revealed to us in a 4th column.
That's why it's not hard to do.
Yes. Say that again.
That's why it's not hard to do. There's no painstaking process here. We're writing a story down,
You have it in your head anyway.
Yeah.
and then we're going to move through a bit of a process and just ask.
But you guys believe you believe this becomes such that hurdle for people, or because they're just not scared, call it what you will, about putting down that story that's been holding them up for so long, getting it on paper,
I think
or
they're suspicious of their stories. I think they know somewhere inside of them that they've got some distortions.
they piled on some shit to make
Well,
sure their truth.
Well, how do you tell a story? I tell it in just the right
Yeah,
way
yeah.
so the guy will agree with me.
Yeah.
The guy I'm telling the story to.
Yep.
I exaggerate what the other guy did, right?
Yep.
I minimize what I did. But the big one for me was I'd leave relevant information out of that
Yeah.
story, because if I told that to him, he won't agree with me.
Right.
So I tailor the story till I get it just right. He and I join in the anger, and we hate the other person together. We're joining in our woundedness, not our strengths.
I'm glad we got that out. I'm glad you touched on that and you put the light on that, because that happens a lot. It happens to me still today. I will find myself doing that.
Well, when you start to listen to yourself when you talk, you'll hear BS come out of your mouth when you're telling it. You know, you go, oh, and then you can see it. See, you can learn to spot your own self-deceptions. But we're even trying to do that right
Right.
now. We're just trying to get the stories down,
Get it out.
whatever they look like. For an example, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. What's the cause? His attention to my wife. Well, how would that affect me if I lose my wife? He's paying attention to my wife. She divorced, whatever. That would affect my sex relations, self-esteem. Fear is bracketed. He's afraid of losing his wife. His anger, he's lashing out with anger because he's afraid. All resentment, all anger is based in fear. I'm afraid of losing something.
The image I'm trying to maintain.
Well, he's afraid of losing his wife. Afraid of losing his life as he knows it. There's a couple other things, but you can read them on your own. But it's just, every one of these is fear of losing something if you read the examples.
Yeah.
They all are. Fear is the
So,
motivator for
yeah.
the anger. Can't be angry without,
Self-esteem, your
you can't be
security, yeah.
angry without being fearful. Fear is driving the anger.
One way or another,
Yeah,
whatever your anger is, there's fear based.
yeah.
Right.
There's a direct relationship between the two. So that's the story, right? We just got a number of stories, and you can list 3 or 4 things with Mr. Brown, that's fine, like they did here. That you're angry about with that one person, but don't list a bunch of people on one sheet.
So then, like, this comes from one of our listeners is, so when I feel like there's no one who's getting what I'm going through, what's really going on then? Is that a self situation? I'm sharing with these people, or I'm trying to get my story. Wait a sec. I already answered myself already. I shouldn't care. Should I not even be worried about what people are understanding or feeling right now about what I'm putting down?
Who cares? We're doing it in the privacy of our own mind.
You follow that, listener? All right. So they're asking, I feel like there's no one who's getting what I'm really going through. It's not for them to get what you're going through. This is
a
for you and your own growth.
You're telling the story to justify your anger.
There we
free
go.
chance to write a few of these down in a real simple, clear format.
The more you tell the story, the more you tie yourself to the resentment. And you tie yourself to what? Self-delusion.
Delusion, self-delusion. Perfect.
Okay, so that's the story, right? And then they go on, they talk about how destructive anger is on page 66. Then at the bottom of the page, there's a couple of sentences that are significant here where we turn back to the list.
We turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle.
Look, I know that most people look at this and say, well, we're looking at it from what they did to us. Now we're going to look at our part. That's not what we're going to do. I know it's all over the fellowship that way. It's not what this is. And we're going to look at it from an entirely different angle. We're open to the possibility of seeing it from an entirely different angle.
So is this where we got not let our guard down, but be open?
That's all it is.
They just got to be open.
Yeah.
We're going back through the story that I just put down, those 3
Exactly.
columns.
Exactly.
And now it's time to be open about going over
We
that.
were prepared to look at it. We're open to the possibility to seeing it from an entirely different angle. We don't know what that is yet.
Right.
It's going to be revealed to us. We don't know. Nobody can tell you this. And if somebody's telling you that in AA, it's not what it is. And there's a lot of us who like to tell that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, because we're junior psychiatrists,
Yeah.
We're going to fix everybody.
Yeah.
Go to Al-Anon, folks. Really. Yeah.
Huh.
We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill.
Yeah. Fancied or real. It's still destroying me, whether it's reality or not reality. It's still destroying me.
The guy who stole the money didn't really steal the money.
Yeah.
Fancied.
Right? And
Sure.
he's still getting the wrath.
And I find the money, and what's the first thing you do? You accuse the other guy.
How
my
could-
MO.
How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol.
Yeah. Can't wish them away. Why? Because it's emotional. It's not intellectual. I don't want to be angry. It's only $5 he ripped me off for, but I'm angry. He didn't pay me back $5. It's so trite. There's a lot
doesn't
more
matter.
behind it.
Yep,
See,
yep.
it's not just that he didn't give you the $5. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't. There's all kinds of things behind that $5. It's not the money necessarily. It's a lot of
You
the
brought him in your
friendship
house,
stuff.
whatever. Yeah, all
Yeah.
the things
Whatever
that
it
your
is.
heads tell. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick.
oh boy, what a bunch of crap, huh? Perhaps they're spiritually sick. What if you've been raped or molested
Here we go.
or beaten? And yet, what are we going to do? Oh, perhaps they're spiritually sick. I feel much better now. I almost left AA on that sentence. I thought, this is such crap. Now we're going to justify crappy behavior from somebody.
Murder. Yeah, yeah.
That's
keep going.
exactly what I thought, and I'm not kidding you. I damn near walked on that sentence. Luckily, I kept going because that's not what it is. Look, if somebody did an act like that to someone, they clearly were not in their loving mind, their spiritual nature. They're not in they're in their human addictive nature. They're not in their loving nature. So they're spiritually sick. It's the only way I could start to see this. That's what it is, see? Clearly, they're coming out of their addictions for whatever it is. Might be power, sex, money, who knows what it is. But they're spiritually sick if they did an outrageous act to another person. So these things happen. We acknowledge that, okay? But look at where this goes.
Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too.
I don't like the symptoms of their spiritual sickness, what they did, and the way it disturbed me. But they, like ourselves, were sick too. That sentence bothered me because I didn't see it for a long time, and one day it just blew. It just opened me up. They, like ourselves, were sick too. I thought, why did Bill? Well, he's including me with this guy I'm
this
pissed at.
rapist or-
The
yep.
other guy. Well, they, like ourselves. Do I want compassion and understanding for my mistakes?
Yes.
Do I want people to give me a break? Did I want Pam to come back?
Yep.
The mother of my children, in spite of the way I treated her and the family from my addiction? Yeah.
Of course.
Well, guess what? What if you murdered somebody? Do you want people to give you a break?
yeah. Why wouldn't?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. Give you another chance because you did something stupid. You in a rage, a drunken rage, you beat somebody over the head with a 2x4 and went to prison. And
You're
yeah.
spiritually
Well, guess what?
sick.
If I want a break for the stuff I've done out of my addictions, then I'm going to have to learn to have some understanding or tolerance for other people's inability to control themselves. Why? Because I'm going to judge myself as harshly as I'm judging them. And the more you hammer on them for their mistakes, the more you're hammering on yourself for your
Yeah,
own
yep.
mistakes. Well, you can't get out of it, right? Because I got 3 columns written of stories, and I keep justifying my anger through the stories, right? Through the 3 columns. Well, so I need what? The next sentence.
We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend.
How would I treat a sick friend?
Or self.
Well, same thing.
Yeah.
When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him?"
Don't say, how can I kick his ass?
God save me from being angry. Thy
There's a
will
prayer.
be done.
Thy will. God's will be done, not mine. Mine is to punish and get even. God's will is to love and help them. I'm out of harmony with God. Help me to not be like this. I'm asking for help right here.
When I walk around and I have a resentment or a grievance about someone else and they're down the street, down the road, what if it's from 20 years ago? Who's suffering from my resentment?
You are.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I'm good at it.
Yeah. We always have been.
It's been a very strange hobby I developed somewhere along the line. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way.
And why is that?
If we
went
do,
oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
if we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful.
That's the third step idea. We're going to make a decision to be helpful instead of hurtful.
And this is all in return to unto self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want compassion from you for my mistakes or my wrongdoings, especially in my malady when I was that 3 sheets to the wind or what have you, and I
Right.
made that drunken left turn on the road and I accidentally ran your dog over. Show me some compassion. I was effed up and not in my right mind. I was spiritually sick.
But the
I have
last thing I want to do is give you that break.
Right.
You should have known better.
Well,
You-
sure. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
see.
our
That's what
nature. That's
oh,
our
yeah.
human nature.
That's what
Mind.
we're looking at now.
Yeah.
Judgment is always on me.
We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one.
We're on these lists of people we've written about, these 3 columns. So that's really the attitude you're bringing into a 4th column. Remember, it says we ask God. It doesn't say sponsor.
Right.
Anywhere in here, it's not talking about a human being helping you.
No.
No, we're asking God. Now it says, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view. Well, I didn't believe in God. It didn't matter. It mattered that I took the action and tried it, and I got thoughts in my mind that changed how I viewed the circumstances of my resentments.
I got a question from someone where I believe we can say the answer fairly easy, but if I don't have God as my higher power, but I do have a higher power, can I still use that in the place of God?
You know what I said? I said, I hate how I feel. I need to see this differently because I didn't believe.
All right.
I was an atheist
Yeah.
The
when I
work,
did this.
the worksheets are so precisely following the book, it will precisely won't matter.
You heard that. It won't matter. Just follow the sheets. Be willing and open.
It's Nike, not Nietzsche. Just do it.
Just do it.
Quit philosophizing.
Whoever that is could try it and then give us a report.
Right.
The guy who laid that line on me this is 30-some years ago. He died drunk. He had some great lines though, man, but he died drunk, you know? Yeah. He said another one. He said, anytime you put somebody up on a pedestal, it's a setup. All you're really doing is sliding a larger shaft or a longer shaft under them. You put them up on a pedestal to shaft them. Yeah, they can't live up to it. None of us can, you know?
Building them. Yeah.
Well, he died drunk. Poor guy. He was.
How'd
Boy, he
that
had
work
some
out?
great lines, though, you know? Okay, here we're coming into a 4th column now.
Referring to our list again,
Our stories. Take one at a time now.
in the privacy of my own mind, I'm away from people now. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes.
We put out of our mind the wrongs others had done. If you're looking for your part, you haven't put out of your mind the wrongs others had done. You still think the other guy's got a part.
Okay.
We're not looking at him anymore. We're just looking at where I made mistakes in the situations, the whole lifetime situations with my dad, not just the events I'm angry about. How did I show up in life around my dad? Where did I make mistakes?
Yeah. Get them out. So,
Stop looking at them.
and look at self.
You know why it's
No.
important to stop looking at them? Because you'll keep justifying what you did by what they did. Well, if
Huh.
you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
You'll never get out of it that way. He's going to say it again in a couple sentences, putting out of your mind the wrongs others had done. But keep it in mind that if you're looking for your part, then somebody else has a part. They're saying we're going to put out of our mind the wrongs others had done. We're just going to look for where we made mistakes in my interaction with that other person. Before, after, whatever. Even if it was an event. How did I make, what mistakes did I make leading up to the event? or after or during. How did I show up? Put out of your mind what they did. Stop looking at them. We already took their inventory.
That means 100%. I'm putting them 100% out of my mind.
We put the fourth column on the back of the sheet so that the first three columns are on the front.
Gonzo.
And then you're going to turn the sheet over because it's not, now you don't want it facing you when you're going to write, where did I make mistakes? And then they give you the questions, so you don't even have to make
It's not
them up.
relevant to know that other side while we're on the fourth column right now.
Yeah, now we're on the
Exactly.
fourth column. You put out of your mind the wrongs they did by turning the sheet over. The wrongs they did is on the other side.
So
Physical experience of putting it out of your mind.
So here we go. Here are the questions that I ask myself. Where had we been selfish?
Acting without concern for others.
And then just write.
See what comes.
Whatever thoughts come in, even if they don't make sense, remember we're going to try something that doesn't seem logical.
Just write.
Yep.
Whatever comes in, write it down.
Yep.
Where was I selfish? Doing for myself. I wasn't considering others.
And write and write and write until you don't hear any more thoughts.
In your experience with this, Jesse, you were saying there was things coming out of your pen you didn't even know where they're coming from. They're just
I
flowing
thought
through
I,
you.
I thought I couldn't believe what it was saying to me, but I just wrote it down anyway. It didn't make sense to begin with, but oh boy, did it make sense as I kept going.
Yeah. So after you write all the places you can think of where you were selfish in that relationship in its entirety,
Then we ask ourselves another question. Where was I dishonest?
dishonest to get what I want. Where was I dishonest? How did I show up? Lying, stealing, manipulating people to get what you want. That's dishonest.
Almost always have something to write there.
Mhm.
And here's the next question. Where was I self-seeking and frightened?
Put on the sheet, afraid I'll lose what I have or not get what I want. Then I did something to them. I was seeking for myself. Maybe you didn't get what you wanted. So then you slander the person or you attack them or you gossip or whatever you do.
Right.
You know,
One,
that'd be
some
the
way to
exact-
get at them
That'd be the exact nature of your mistakes.
is your own form of your retaliation to what you thought was done wrong to you.
Yeah, because I didn't get what I wanted.
Right.
See, the answers to these questions have nothing to do with anyone else.
Now look at this next sentence.
Just self. Yep.
Though a situation had not been entirely our fault.
Okay, we'll give you that much. It's not entirely your fault. We understand that.
Okay. We try to disregard the other person involved entirely.
It doesn't say partially,
Entirely.
entirely. Put out of your mind the wrongs others had done up above, and then put out of your mind the, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Twice he said it in this paragraph.
Where
Must be important to put out of your mind the wrongs others had done. Why? Because you'll justify what you did by what they did. It's just so basic. You got to stop looking at them.
Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. We saw our faults and we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white.
That's what you do when you fill out a sheet or you answer those questions.
We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight.
Yeah, you're admitting your wrongs by writing it. See what comes. Yeah. See, that's the basic resentment inventory. Then there's a fear inventory.
There's 3 basic inventories. We just covered one in brief.
So now there's a fear inventory that starts to emerge.
Now, at the 4-step workshop you guys do every Wednesday night here at 2218 at
6:30.
At 6:30, that anyone's welcome to come to. Do you guys go through the basic inventory, the fear inventory? Do you guys go through thoroughly all of it?
Yeah, we go through chapter 5 completely.
Okay, just kind of pumping up the.
Whatever it takes to get through it, that's what we do. Yeah.
And people can come in and ask
We
questions.
don't care. Yeah, and we don't care what part of it you come in. You don't. We're not that rigid. I know there's some other workshops
Right.
that
You got to be here when we
gotta-
start. Yeah.
Yeah, and you gotta start at a certain time, and you gotta finish the whole.
And there's nothing to say you can't keep coming. Go through it
No.
again.
That's right.
Yeah. All right.
And where in this building do you do this workshop?
Right in the auditorium.
Auditorium.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyone can come. Matt,
Yeah,
just come
it's
on.
not just AA people. It could
Yeah.
be
Well, we have
Al-Anon. It
family
could be.
members that come.
It could be overeaters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The
This
the
works for-
solution
yeah,
is the
go ahead.
same regardless of the addiction.
Right. Right. So anyone listening, if you've got someone in your life, and we share about this, if there's someone you know that could just use a little talk of recovery, tune into the podcast. For this situation, you know anyone who could benefit from trying to shed this stuff or work through some resentments and what have you, lay it on them. Tell them about 2218 First Avenue South, 6:30 on Wednesdays. Come to the auditorium. This works for all aspects of life. I think that's a
yeah.
basic good term to say. All aspects of life this could work for.
Yeah, and we're not looking at where we were bad. We're really looking at where the other guy may not be guilty. Why is that important? Because
In
if you can
return.
see his innocence, you'll clearly see that the problem's centered in myself.
Right.
Okay? When I was able to let go of a resentment toward my dad for being a crappy dad, he was an alcoholic, broke up the family. I did the same thing to my kids. Yet I'm judging him, I'm hating him
Right.
for being a crappy dad. What was I saying to myself for what I
You
did to my family?
justified you being a crappy dad.
Yeah. So what happened when I lifted the anger off of him and stopped judging him for being bad? It lifted off of me at the same time. You're actually forgiving yourself outside of yourself because you've been judging yourself outside of yourself.
So is this at a point where you were able to then start to grow, become better at being a dad then?
Well, I just saw that what I believed was true wasn't true. It just wasn't true. It didn't mean he was a good dad.
Right.
It just meant that my life was not ruined because of him. I saw that I made stupid choices and decisions out of selfishness, bad choices. My life fell apart. I never asked his opinion. I just did dumb stuff,
Right,
you know,
right.
because I was caught in addiction. My life fell apart. I didn't want to be responsible for it, so I hated him for my mistakes. Then who are you hating?
Self.
If you know somewhere in your mind you made the choices, you made the decisions, you took the actions, he didn't do it.
Was
But
it
the key was all I was really doing was forgiving myself through him, by seeing him differently, by seeing his innocence, if you will.
right?
Then you start to see your own. Doesn't mean you didn't make mistakes. Doesn't mean you don't make amends. It just means you see the truth.
Right. Where they may not have been that wrong.
Well, it
Or
got
what have you,
revealed to
right.
me, you know. It just got revealed to me that I was wrong, not bad.
So we're seeing the story differently from an entirely different angle that was revealed to us through this process. That's what we're looking for. And it just comes. You don't have to try hard at all.
I like how you worded it though, Rick. Working through this, it may show where that other person may not have been so wrong to me. Or how would
They may have done something outrageous, but
Yeah.
is that why my life's a mess?
so you're putting all this stock into what dad did.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then I did the same thing to my family.
Then yeah.
And guess what? Then you hate yourself if your kids are doing poorly. Then you try and force them to do good or you feel guilty.
One hell of a vicious circle that starts
So
happening.
you ruin your
right.
relationship with your kids because you're trying to force them to shape up. Because you feel guilty because you feel responsible for them. Why? Because I got my dad responsible for me.
Yeah, this definitely the more you guys share about this and the more I've been to your workshops, the more it is in tune with anyone who just in life, that you don't have to be an alcoholic or a junkie to benefit from doing this.
Right.
No,
You know,
don't be a
like-
human.
Yeah, that's one qualifier. But Al-Anon, like you said, your guys' 4-step workshops filled with people from Al-Anon in here all the time.
It has been, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're 12-step programs. There's a 4-step on those 12 steps, usually. You know, overeaters, sex addicts, gambling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is very important that we go through this. And you guys have been, how long have you been doing the 4-step workshop here?
Well, here?
Yeah, that
Maybe
running it.
27 years.
That's a good start. I mean,
It is, yeah.
20.
I started doing it alone at treatment centers, at halfway houses, Prodigal House out at the VA, and
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys coming, giving a snack. Like you guys spend, you understand how many weeks from start to finish? About do you guys
7 maybe.
6-7 weeks they go through this?
Hour and
So
a quarter sessions.
in 2 hours we're really pushing through this, guys. So come check out this workshop, and there's more depth involved to it. So
Yeah, we talk a lot about
Yes.
how the various ways selfishness shows up, and and you can start to see your own stuff. If somebody else catches you at this, you're going to defend yourself. But if you're writing this in the privacy of your own mind and you get thoughts from who knows where that alter how you view things, then you can handle it. It's not a big deal. It's embarrassing if somebody catches you, if you got a sponsor sitting there pushing at you all the time. And he doesn't know all the facts of things
Right.
anyway. They couldn't possibly help.
Should we get on to fears?
let's do it.
All right. Notice the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife.
That's on page 65, the third column, fear is bracketed. The reason, again, we already covered it, you can't be angry without being fearful. So fear is the motivator for the resentments.
Fear is the motivator for resentments.
Yeah. But you can be fearful without being angry.
Thus, the fear inventory.
Thus, we need a fear inventory. But if you're angry, it's because you're afraid of losing something. Or not getting something, which is really the same as I'm afraid of losing something. I'm afraid of losing what I'm not getting. That's really what it is.
Afraid of losing what I'm not getting.
This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives.
I didn't know that. As a guy growing up on the streets, you never showed your fear. If you did, the guys I drank with would grind on you.
You'd never hear the end of
You'd
it.
never get the end of it. The last thing you were going to do is admit you were afraid of anything. You knew you were angry, but it never made the connection that it was fear.
It
Fear.
was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble.
Think about what this, if we can unpack this a little bit. I did not know that my fear, that my fabric of my existence was shot through with fear. I didn't know that. But yet I was experiencing this next sentence. It, meaning fear, set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Well, that doesn't even seem reasonable, does it? Well, I was experiencing this. So my fears were setting in motion trains of circumstances. What's a train? Lots of cars, long lines of circumstances, okay? I'll give you an example from my life. It's a good example because I think it's around relationships, and that's where a lot of this stuff comes up. Now, Pam and I, when I first met her, some other of my kids, we were together for 11 years, and we were not together anymore. After I got sober, we split. And and there was a lot of heartache. She was a drinking, but she wasn't like I was.
yeah.
You know, she had her own stuff, but it wasn't.
She wasn't
Believe
wrong.
me, when I wrote some inventory, I wouldn't have stayed with her for 3 months if she was doing to me what I did to her for 11 years. I'd have left her.
Right.
Not proud of that. That's really,
It's just what it was.
that's just a reality, and I
It's
know
just
that
what it was.
because I dated a gal before her who was a little nuts, and I blew her right out, man. I wasn't gonna put up with that crap, you know.
While you were in recovery?
No,
Oh.
that was when I was using. You know? So right before Pam. So anyway, Pam was really a great-looking gal. I mean, hot
Yeah.
would be a good description.
Smoke
but-
show. Some of us
Yeah.
could say a smoke show.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought that would bring me pleasure. And it did. I felt pleasure looking at her. That sort of, you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Guys, women do this too.
Yes, they do.
Okay? So what I thought would bring me pleasure started to cut the other way. Started to bring me pain. Oh yeah. I'll give you an example. We're out at the bars. There's always guys on there, man. They're always pushing to get something going. They don't care that I'm with her. Nobody cares in the bar. I'll give you an example. One situation, I'm standing at the bar, Pam is next to me. She's living with me. Now we got trouble because we're drinking. You know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
We're together for a year or so, maybe longer. I don't know. It's before the kids. And
Drunken petty.
and she's standing on the end, and I'm next to her. This big, good-looking guy comes up on the end of the bar, starts talking to her. Now he's bigger than me, okay, and I mean he's significantly bigger than I am, and he's good-looking, so that's a threat. And she's getting along with him. They're talking and having fun, and I'm completely left out of the conversation.
But you're right there.
I'm right on the other side of her, and her attention is turned to the right. I'm on her left.
And you guys are together.
We're together, and she doesn't introduce me. They go on for 15, 20 minutes like this. I'm never introduced, nothing. I'm completely left out of the conversation. This kind of stuff used to happen periodically with her, and there were always guys around her anyway. It was always a problem that way. So what I thought would bring me pleasure now starts to cut the other way. Well, I don't like this. So finally, the guy goes off to the bathroom, and I start in on her. Right there, man. I've had it. I don't like this scene. You know, what are you doing? Why don't you introduce me to him?
Right.
What's going on? Why? See, this kind of crap, we had other stuff, other situations like this over the years, over the year or so we were
Yeah.
together. Well, I don't like this scene. So I'm done. Let's go. 9 o'clock at night or so. Let's go. You rode with me. We're going home. I'm sick of this crap. So we get in the car, and of course, these are opportunities to bring every other situation that's
yeah.
unresolved
Doors open now.
into the conversation, see? So now you start mixing all kinds of different events and circumstances because you're going to air out all your grievances right there. Great opportunity to cause a lot of trouble. So we get home, you know, we're home and we're fighting at home, and pretty soon, if you carry it long enough, you'll be out in the backyard screaming at each other at about 2 in the morning, and the cops will be called because you're drunk and you're crazy, you know? Well, that was typical. I don't like this, so I don't take her out to these places anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. I'm going to control this thing now. I'm not going to bring her out. I don't take her to the bars anymore because I don't like this scene. So once in a while, she'd go out with her friend Kathy. Now, I know what goes on in the bar when I'm with her, what goes on in the bar when I'm not with her. So one night, she's going out with her girlfriend. It's a Friday night. I never come home. I get my money, you get my check or whatever. I go to the bar, usually cash it at the bar or something, and I drink until the bar closes, and I go home drunk. Well, this particular night, she was going out with her friend Kathy. So, you know, this is pre-cell phones, guys.
Yeah.
There used to be one phone booth in the corner of the bar, you know, and that was it. Somebody'd be on that phone screaming at their husband or wife, and there was always people in the bar pissed off because they wanted to get on the phone and scream at their husband or wife, you know, and they couldn't get on. So anyway, or call and say, I'm not coming home, you know. It just reminded me of something. I gotta read you something here. This is an Irish text. See what you think of this one, because
Irish text.
Yeah, this is an Irish text. Here's what it says here. If I can find it real quick. I hate to interrupt my story here.
No,
but
you're good.
This is worth interrupting.
I can
for.
banter while you go.
Yeah.
Again,
It
four
said-
step. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
It says this. Brilliant Irish text message. It says, Mary, I'm just having one more pint with the lads. If I'm not home in 20 minutes, read this message again.
That's good.
Yeah. But anyway, so she's out with her friend Kathy. It's about 11 o'clock at night. And I think, I'm going to go home and see if she's home. See? You can't call her because there's no cell phones. All right? So I go home. I never go home until the bar closes at 1. But I go home at 11. She's not home. But I'm half drunk, and I'm thinking about what goes on in the bar when I'm not with her, you know? I don't trust this woman, is what it really amounts to. Midnight, she ain't home. 1, nope. Bars close at 1. 2 o'clock, she ain't home. 3 o'clock, she comes waltzing in. I'm drunk, she's drunk. Right away, I'm in her face.
Go time.
Yep, that's the time to just get into it, you know? What's the problem here? If you do this long enough, you know what'll happen? My fear of losing her will bring about exactly what I don't want to happen, the destruction of the relationship. What's doing this?
Your fear?
My fear of losing her, and now I'm acting on that fear, and it's bringing about trains of circumstances which brought me misfortune I felt I didn't deserve. You see what this is? That's exactly what he's talking about here. Your fear, if you're making choices and decisions out of your fears, you'll destroy your life. People say, oh, well, it motivates me. Yeah, it motivates you to do dumb stuff, man. If you do this in the workplace, maybe you're been a dinosaur at the job, and a new guy comes in or woman, and everybody likes them out of school, and they're bright, and you feel, oh, shit, you feel threatened. So what do? You slam them a little bit, try and put them down, make them look bad somehow. And what happens? You make yourself look bad. And guess what? Guess who gets fired? You do, because you're the problem.
You're the problem.
Yep.
You know,
And what's doing it? My fear of
Fear,
losing
yes.
my job brings about me losing my job. Lovely, huh?
my new position, fear of confrontation, got me early on with this. Avoiding it caused, at the end of the day, me in fear of confrontation. And it's always been an issue for me. I'm nervous of arguments. I'll shy away or not address the issue out of not wanting a confrontation. Well, I learned that the hard way in early, 4 weeks ago with a resident of one of our properties. Well, in response to that, me walking away from it, there ends up, at the end of the day, a flooded basement because I didn't address a problem because I didn't want an argument.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. Living in fear, I know that's not the same, but it's the same.
Well, I
Can't live
always
in fear
confront
of-
things, but when you're making choices out of your fears, like I was with Pam, what was the problem? My addiction to her looks. I'm getting a good feeling from her. I literally have an addiction with this, see, with her. And guess what? That's a god, isn't it? That's literally an idol. And when I feel threatened, then guess what happens?
Yeah.
You try and control it, and then you push. And you cause the very thing you don't want to happen. This is the problem with this. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Yeah. My insecurity around her, the insecurity was in me, not her.
Right.
Can't be happy without her.
Can't be happy with her.
Yeah. I got to tell you, we spent 11 years together, and I'll tell you, it was, even after we had kids, it was just trouble. We always had this issue. It was me and my insecurities, and she was the same way, too. She was doing the same stuff. around me. So, boy, oh boy, you get that going on and you're going to destroy your relationships. What's doing it? My fear. Fear of losing her.
Fear.
Brought about what? Losing her. Yeah.
What a
Push
gut
long enough
punch,
and they'll
yeah.
leave. You know why? Because they can only stand so much fun.
Eh.
People just can't take this crap, you know? If you'd just change, I'd feel better. That's what I was saying. And I can't be happy without her, so I'm going to manipulate and push and
And do
control
everything,
and force
everything you
and-
can.
Oh, there was a movie about this. What's Love Got to Do with it? It was about Ike and Tina Turner. Watch that one. Played out perfectly in this whole scene, man.
Yeah, he was in fear of losing her.
That's right.
That's it. That
Well,
was
she
his,
was the big push on. He was a talented musician, but when she came on, it took off like a rocket ship.
Mhm.
And then one day she says no more because he's screwing around with other women and stuff, and she can't break away from it. But one day she does,
finally.
and he goes crazy, you know. Yeah, starts to beat her up to keep her.
I
Isn't
just
that
watched
something?
it. Yeah, I watched an interview with him. It wasn't a recent one, but he was talking about hitting her. When he was hitting her,
Yeah.
the interviewer kept asking him, well, basically the question was, why did you hit her?
He's
well,
beating her up to keep her scared.
yeah, and that's what it was. She was coming in, and she was pussyfooting around, giving me sideways answers. So I had to slap her across the chin a few times, as though it was just normal talk. That's what it turned into,
Oh,
normal.
it was just threats. It's
Hitting.
crazy, but it's fear of losing her.
And yeah,
His career was dependent on her, and she was the impetus on it. You know, it was a tough deal.
yeah, she ended up leaving.
Of course she did. Yeah. Yeah. You can only stand so much fun. So it's fear. So what do we do with this stuff then? Well, here's an inventory on it.
We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them.
But you might find some resentments in connection with them if you put them on paper.
But now we have a way to deal with the resentments as they come up in the stream of our mind.
Yeah. So how would we review our fears? Now, we made up some sheets and we just put the questions on them. But what we did do to review your fears, we put down, what am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid of not getting? Now, I've seen other workshops where they'll hand you a sheet of paper because people have so much trouble, men especially, seeing their fears. They'll hand you a sheet of paper with all kinds of fears. I'm afraid of the police. I'm afraid of spiders. I'm afraid of snakes. I'm afraid of... All those things are out there. I'm afraid of the judge. I'm afraid of the cops. The fear is out there then, isn't it?
Yeah.
How about if we look at it as, what am I afraid of losing? Well, I'm afraid of losing my wife. I'm afraid of losing my money. I'm afraid of losing my job. Afraid of losing my house. Afraid of losing my reputation. That sort of thing, right?
And that's what you have on your guys' sheets.
Yeah. What am I
those
afraid
questions.
of losing? And then we put a place, what am I afraid of not getting? Which is really the same thing,
Yeah.
but it's easier to see it from both perspectives. Well, I'm afraid of not getting my family back. I'm afraid of not getting my driver's license back. You see, it's the same
Right. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's just, it looks different, but it's not. So if you just write it out, what am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid of not getting? You will have reviewed your fears thoroughly, and you will have put them on paper. But you will take responsibility for them because now the fear is not out there. You
Right.
haven't projected it out into the events of society.
You made it real. You put it down on paper.
But you've taken responsibility
Yes.
for it because
Made it real.
what am I afraid of losing? That's in me. But the judge is out there. The bully's out there.
Right.
What am I afraid of if a guy's bullying me? I'm afraid of being hurt, be afraid of being beat up, be afraid of being embarrassed in front of my buddies or something, or whatever it
Right.
is. It's still in me. That fear is in me. But you won't see it if you're looking at, well, I'm afraid of snakes. I'm afraid of the judge. I suppose you could get there eventually if you played with it long enough. You can bring this thing right back home quick. What am I afraid of losing?
In just a few minutes.
What am I afraid of not getting? Just write them out. You will have reviewed your fears thoroughly. We put them on paper.
Not hard to do.
We put it on paper. We just did what it said, right?
We ask ourselves why we had them.
That's not a question. It's not a question. And we did Bob made some sheets up initially with that as a question on it, and we took it off. I don't know if it's on the website that way or not. It may still be under, it's actually a rhetorical question. It's answered in the next question. But that's not a question. There's no question mark after it either. Look, in the book. You see that? We asked ourselves why we had them, period. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us?
Oh, boy.
Do I have this?
Self-reliance.
Yeah, that's right. Do I have this fear because I'm reliant on myself? Now, why would I be afraid because I'm reliant on myself? Because I know I'm inadequate. I know I'm inadequate. What can I possibly know or predict or see? I can't see what's going to happen later tonight. I could get hit by a train on the way home. I don't know what's going to happen. But what do? I try and determine my life decisions based on what I can see. That's a very limited perspective. I've got every right to be fearful. My fear is perfectly justified if I'm reliant on myself,
Yep.
right? Clearly, I'm inadequate at this.
So self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough.
Yeah, so you got to get up and put your shoes on and get dressed to go to work, okay? Okay, there's certain things you have to do. Self-reliance is good as far as it went, so that's good. But it doesn't go far enough to be self-reliant.
Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse.
Why? Because people react to your cockiness then, and you're already insecure.
So now there's two problems.
Yeah. You're already insecure, and now I'm arrogant. I'm putting on airs. I'm pumping myself up. I'm pretending like I'm better than other people, smarter, prettier, whatever the hell it is. And guess what? There's always somebody smarter or prettier comes along. You
Yep.
know? It will never work to be reliant on yourself.
Perhaps there's a better way.
I sure hope
Here
so.
it comes.
We think so. For we are now on a different basis. The basis of trusting and relying upon God.
There it is.
We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves.
Yeah, because it doesn't work to trust your finite self.
We are in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity.
That's a big sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it's the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do.
Not what I can do, what He can do. Don't take the credit or you'll build a big ego trip about it. It's like blowing up a balloon. The bigger you blow it up, the bigger you blow up your ego, the more insecure you get. Why? Because you know you're fake. You're phony. You're taking credit for stuff. I know I did this as an atheist. Then you finally get crushed because you cannot solve any problem. Ended up in trouble, man. That's how I got to AA. Couldn't solve anything. It got worse every time I fixed it. But I got to tell you, the bigger you blow up a balloon, the thinner the sides get. And you're just waiting for some prick to come along and expose you for the fraud you are.
Well, this is all a four-step promise. This is all the promise. Like, this is all, what you read, the last sentence of that last paragraph, and what you're reading now is all a promise. What they're telling us, what you're reading us right now, it's a
It moves us to the promise.
Yeah, instead, we let Him demonstrate through us. Don't take the credit. What He can do, not what I can do.
We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be.
Yeah.
at once we commence to outgrow fear.
It's another promise. They're telling
Look,
us
you'll
we
get
will.
some-
Yeah. Go ahead.
You'll get some perspective on this if you're getting awareness that the fear is in you, not in the situation. That the insecurity is in me, not Pam, okay? What I did with her in my mind made me insecure of losing her, afraid of losing her. People do this all the time in relationships and then try and get the other person to act a certain way so you won't feel insecure. It'll never work. It has to come from reliance upon a power greater than yourself. There's no other way, or you're going to be flopping around in your fears all the time. So you're just writing it out, getting some perspective. I'd like to get to touch. Do we got a little bit of time?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah, you know
much.
what? Yeah, we're gonna run late anyways. If you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, I don't have to. We don't have to go too far, but I'd like to touch on this conduct inventory because people think this
Sex,
is a
yeah.
sex inventory, and it's
no.
absurd.
Yeah.
It's not a sex inventory. It's a conduct inventory around relationships that are sexual. God,
Intimate.
listen to people with lots of sobriety sit there and talk about how guilty he was for every time he masturbated or something. It has nothing to do with this crap, you know.
Tell them.
Oh,
Tell
it's
'em,
just
Rick.
enough to drive you nuts.
Well, just like
listening to
the
that stuff.
inventory of resentments, there's a lot of stuff that floats around in AA that does not match the book. This is something if we just read the book on this.
Stick to it.
See what it says. Let's see what it says. Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get way off the track.
It sure is.
Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes.
Oh,
perhaps.
we're gonna look at the absurd extremes, perhaps. Here's how the extremes look.
One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation.
As I read that, I thought, what the hell does that mean? You know, it's a lust of our lower nature, our human nature. Okay, it's a base necessity for procreation. That's what one set of voices will say. You should just have sex to make children. That's what one set of voices say. We're not taking a stand. It's just what these are extremes. They're going to give us the extremes. There'll be a million variations between them.
Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet.
See, these are the extremes. You should just, it doesn't matter. You know, I come from that generation, the Woodstock generation, you know. Free love, just do whatever you want. You know, have sex anytime, any place, with anyone, It was a whole generation of that stuff, you know. Well, we certainly see where that got us in our culture. But you've got the voices who are very rigid and then the voices who are very loose. It's just the extremes. There's all kinds of variations. You start going around AA people and ask them their opinion about what you should do about your sexual relationships, and you'll be insane after a few of those questions.
Yeah,
With
lots
different
of their
people.
opinions is
Oh,
what it is.
everybody's got an opinion
Opinions.
on this one. And then they'll say things like, AA says you got to stay out of relationships for a year.
Yeah.
They'll attribute it to AA as if it's an AA idea. It has nothing to do with AA.
Nope.
We're going to handle that right here.
We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them?
Now, there's the right question. But think about what he just said here. Look, we of AA, this is Bill saying this, we want to stay out of this controversy about whether you should be in a relationship or not be in a relationship, or how long you gotta be sober. None of that. It's all nonsense. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. Arbiter, like in baseball, arbitration. You send the contract to the arbitration to find out what's fair. So we don't want to be the judge of anyone's sex conduct. My God, doesn't anyone read this in the fellowship?
Wow.
It's all over the fellowship about this crap. Sponsors,
I've heard it from day one.
I know,
Well, I know.
sponsors
There's a
telling
lot of
sponsees
stuff.
how long they gotta be sober, who they can be sexual with.
You know what? My sponsor. He said,
Unbelievable.
when you feel you're ready, we can talk about it. But he didn't say. My sponsor didn't tell me that I'm teaching you that you need to stay out of a relationship for a year. And he talked about the way you're talking about it. It's not for me to tell you when you need to be in a relationship
What
or
if
not.
we read the book together instead?
That's what we did.
Well, here, my
That's what
point,
all these
and the
highlights and all this
reason-
and that and jazz and.
I've heard this over the years, and I got to tell you, there's all kinds of justification, and they tell you all kinds of reasons why they're right about what you should do or shouldn't do. It's enough to push people away from AA at 100
There
miles
you
an hour.
go.
Not only that, but you set up a circumstance if you start telling a sponsee to stay away from women or men. You set up a circumstance where they're going to do whatever the hell they want to do anyway, and then they're going to lie to you. And you've set up a circumstance for them to lie to you.
There you go. Putting up more weight on someone's
It's your
shoulders.
own-
Yeah.
It's not even your business. It's none of my. We want to stay out of this controversy. Wow, how much clearer could it be? Well, I guess nobody reads this.
Right.
Not my business. It's just not my business. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not my business.
No, if a sponsee comes to you, Rick, I've heard this and that about a year and this and that. When can I be in a relationship? What do you say to a sponsee who comes to you and says that?
I said, we're going to look at the inventory right here.
There's the answer.
Let's read this book together.
Yeah.
There's the answer.
We'd hardly be human if we didn't. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? Here's the inventory on conduct. It's a conduct inventory, not a sex inventory.
We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate?
Okay, so now that's the basic inventory. Where had I been selfish in my conduct in relationships that were sexual? In a general way, no names. We're not writing names down. Just generally, how did I show up with women through the course of my life? Where had I been selfish in my relationships? Doing for myself without concern for these women. And I'm not talking about the act. I'm not talking about not the act. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the relationship. Where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest in my relationship with women? And where was I inconsiderate? That's the basic conduct. It's how did I show up? We put on the sheet.
I was gonna say,
in
is
my
this
conduct.
Is this what you have on your sheet? Is conduct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we emphasized that point because we reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? How did I show up in my conduct in a general way throughout my life? You don't write names down first. Now I'm going to stick my neck out on this one. There's Big Book Seminar inventory sheets that came out of all people, Joe and Charlie. And you know what they do? They start out the sheet, whom had we hurt? Now, how would you know who you hurt unless you wrote a conduct inventory first? Unless you're making an assumption that you hurt everybody you were ever sexual with.
Or intimate, yeah.
And that's absurd. We're just not that big a deal. You might not be as important as you once thought you were. Maybe you didn't hurt everybody you had a relationship with. But they don't, AA never says you're guilty first. They say take an inventory. Now, whom had you hurt? Did somebody get hurt by your conduct? You wrote a conduct inventory. Now you'll know if somebody got hurt. But to start out with whom had we hurt is absurd. It's just absurd. And it's not in the book.
It's not in the book, and it's just say, go through the book.
Yeah.
We got
so
10 minutes. We got 10 minutes,
Yeah,
and then we
it's
got
so refreshing if we just go through the book, and it will weed out these mountains of stuff that floats around AA that's not in the book.
Okay.
go through the book.
So now we got whom had we hurt?
Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness?
Here again. Just because somebody's jealous, suspicious, and bitter does not mean it's your fault. Look how it's worded. Did we unjustifiably arouse it? You see, that's different. There are people jealous, suspicious, and bitter long before you came along. Okay? But am I bringing something about? Am I making them jealous, suspicious, or bitter? But again, AA doesn't say because somebody's that way that it's your fault. But did I unjustifiably arouse it? Was I playing games? When, let's say Pam was talking to some guy at a party and I was insecure, and then I didn't like it, so the next time we're out at a bar or a party, I intentionally go over to another woman because I want her to see it, by the way.
Yeah.
So that, and this is not my MO, guys, but I've seen a lot of people do this. I never was interested in sabotaging relationships like this. Once I knew I was doing it. And then you go over in front of somebody else. You do it right in front of her to show her how it felt when she did it to you. Now, do you think the best way to have a relationship is to sabotage it like that?
No.
But yet we do it, don't we? Because I felt hurt, so now I'm going to try and hurt her.
Arouse.
And then I wonder why I'm in trouble with relationships, you know?
Arouse, evoke or awaken a feeling, emotion, or response. Something about the man arouses the guard's suspicion. It's to invoke or awaken a feeling.
And that was on what word?
Did we unjustifiably arouse?
Oh, you're reading it out of
like
a-
I know the definition of arouse.
Oh,
Is
arouse,
you're
yeah.
intentionally going up, making someone
That's
jealous.
Right. That's right.
Hey, yeah, I don't want to land see, but hey, look at this new girl I'm talking to over here.
Yeah.
Extra loud, so the girl you're with, see, you're making them jealous. You're trying to. You're causing.
Well, I want to see if she cares about me. Like
That's
what
it.
love is.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You know?
That
Talk
damn Mike
about
Turner, I'll tell you
distorted.
what.
Talk about distorted. Holy cow. But that's a great way. Did we unjustifiably arouse it? Jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness?
Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it.
Yeah, what should I have done instead? Boy, you can see it in hindsight, can't you? When you've destroyed a relationship. And then the next year you go along, you get in another one, you do the same shit. And then the next year you do the same stuff again. It's not, and I'm even aware that I'm doing it, but I just don't make any changes because I don't even know how to. I don't even know what the problem is.
Well, and this is where we talked about it earlier, but you don't have to be an alcoholic, a drug addict, where you can come to this 4-step workshop. If you're having issues in relationships time and time again, maybe something like this could maybe help you out a little.
Of course it would.
You
Well,
don't have to qualify as an alcoholic or an addict or a sex junkie, whatever. This could help you out in life.
Well, look at this next sentence.
In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life.
So we've taken an inventory and we know what didn't work. Now I'm going to shape a sane and sound ideal for my future sex life.
We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not?
Yeah, is what I'm about to do selfish? It'll save you a ton of trouble if you ask it.
To ask these questions ahead.
Listen to this one now.
We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them.
Notice it didn't say sponsor.
Yeah.
You know, your sponsor may have a different ideal.
I
than
put
you do.
this is a prayer. This is what I highlighted and said this is a prayer.
Yeah.
I can pray for that.
Yeah, but you don't have to live up to somebody else's ideal.
No, mine.
You got to form an ideal.
Mine.
My sponsor, his first marriage was an open marriage. Well, they were
That-
intellectuals. That's something that they did.
I
And
guess.
it was fine until he called her up and said, I'm not coming home tonight. And then it became a different issue.
I found a different. Yeah.
And when he was married after that relationship failed, then he didn't have an open marriage on the next one. Let's say he did. Do I have to live up to his ideal?
No,
Of course not.
That's his.
You gotta be okay with yourself by writing an inventory. It's yours,
Yours.
not somebody else's. What's okay for you might not be for me, and vice versa.
We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it.
Isn't that beautiful? They're not telling you what the ideal should be. That's the one thing that I rejected religion about, was that they were telling me what my ideal should be. I thought. I don't know if they were or not. That's what I heard.
That's what you heard.
All right, that's what I heard. And I got to tell you, I just rejected them completely. But AA doesn't do that. You form an ideal based on what's acceptable to you, and whatever that is, you must be willing to grow toward it. That's beautifully put.
We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing.
There's a big warning. Just step back. Don't go running out and making amends and saying dumb stuff.
In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it.
Yeah, do I want the right answer, or do I just want what I want? This is all about going inward and getting your reliance on God, not people. Maybe we could read this next paragraph and then quit.
Yeah, because we're gonna be having to wrap up.
God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge.
And why do we let God be the final judge?
We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose.
Yep, that's why.
We avoid hysterical thinking or advice.
Well, you will get hysterical thinking and advice. You know, it's hard to cover all this stuff, but we just tried to touch on some of this.
Right.
You know. In the workshop, it's a lot easier to expand and talk about this stuff and get questions and.
Yeah, and that's why you've heard me multiple times throughout tonight is really push the different levels of what you can get out of coming to this 4-step workshop. There's a reason it's been going on for 27 years because it works.
We don't have a life.
Yeah, shit. As you're talking about going to this country and going on this trip and that, they have a life. Don't let them kid you. This 4-step workshop is monumental in life. I don't say just for an alcoholic now. I don't say just for a drug addict. It's beneficial in life. I started realizing that a couple years into recovery about a lot of the stuff we're doing is I could have used this when I turned 17, 16. I could have used this type of stuff early on. But I want to thank you guys for showing up each month and presenting a step with us. I think this is a great thing that we're doing. We've got someone showing up here in a minute. Going to celebrate his 3 years. That's why we went long. But again, at 6:30 on Wednesdays here at 2218 First Avenue South, right in the auditorium, right when you walk in that back door by the big dumpster in the main parking lot, there's the 4-step workshop. It goes for what, hour? You guys do it? Hour and a half?
15 minutes.
Yeah.
But you know, if you bring a sponsee or something to it, then you can talk about what went on, and you can
Right.
argue and fight, and
Yeah.
we go out to eat
They
after,
fellowship,
and you can argue with us.
yeah.
And
Always, yeah. It's great camaraderie and it's growth. And you heard it on the show how it is. So next week we've got Jeff, who's going to be on the show, myself, and some hosts. It's going to be a good show next week as well. These boys will be back next month, and we'll be on step 5.
yeah.
It's going to be huge.
The second week in May.
The second week in May. Tonight, we're going to talk about gratitude real quick. Elena, what are you grateful for?
I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I'm sober today. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I have kids that love me. I did get into an argument with one today, but it's with love. Like, that's what I care now. I didn't care before, and I care now. So I get to be there. But other than that, I mean, I'm just grateful. I'm always
That is
grateful.
awesome, Elena.
I'm always
Thank
grateful.
you. Young Matthew, come grab a mic and tell us what you're grateful for. Please give us a quote. We always love when you give us a quote of the week. Then Ryan, you get on over here too.
I'm grateful for that I had the opportunity to get hired onto my job this within the next couple months, hopefully.
Congratulations.
And it's the biggest thing I'm grateful for because it's really gonna help me with where I'm trying to go with my life. So my quote is, "A single candle can light the way for the masses. Today, shine brightly."
It's good, Matt. Ryan, what are you grateful for?
Today I'm grateful for my sanity and for the ability to actually listen and shut up. Basically, seek to understand before being understood. It's how I live. And I ask a lot of questions of why and who and where and all that. Instead of judging, I still get stuck on judgments of other people, which I know I'm judging myself. But it's understanding that the judgments aren't bad. It's more of I'm asking why I judge. And as long as I'm asking why, I know I'm doing the right thing. So I'm just going to keep doing that.
All
Tim,
right,
what are you grateful for?
The light bulb. That little light bulb that I still get it, and I still can't wait till I get it, because when I get it, it feels good. That aha moment. I'm grateful for those and being able to appreciate them. Jesse, what are you grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful for this stream that keeps happening from working in the AA program, a stream of friends and customers and events and things. I don't even see them coming, but they do keep coming. And I'm grateful for your great show, too. This is really something. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick, what are you grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful that I can be wrong without hating myself,
Yeah.
and others. I can let others make mistakes too. So that's been a big help for me. And I've got a lot of gratitude for all the people who came, especially my sponsor, and because he died 2 years ago, something like that. And he had me 25 years older than I was, and him. He just gave me a psychological commitment that an older man would, a younger guy. And I got a lot of gratitude for him and his wife, and it's been a hell of a journey.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So this week, again, I want to thank you and Jesse. Tad wasn't here to do final thoughts, but I was asked if I could talk about something real quick. It's becoming an asset. We come into these rooms, maybe not with time or knowledge under our belt, but we're an asset regardless of. The longer we stay in these rooms, the bigger an asset we can become. Don't tell yourself you're not. You are worthy. You're worthwhile. You belong where you're at when you come here. You are an asset. You might be the only glimpse of this program that some people might see when you leave. Remember, you're an asset, and don't take your life for granted. You belong here, you're worthy, and you're loved. And I was trying to drag on as long as I could tonight because I got a message 15 minutes ago that our friend was going to be here in 10 minutes, but it's not happening, and we got to wrap up. So, thank you guys all again. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Love you.